I wasn't screaming. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even angry. I just stared at her. My daughter-in-law. A woman I had hugged. A woman I had welcomed. A woman I thought would someday call me Mom. And she said it like she was telling me the weather. We got married yesterday. No warning, no apology, no hesitation. That's when I realized something terrifying. This wasn't a secret anymore. It was a power move. And I had just lost my place in my own son's life.
My name is Linda Carter. I'm 58 years old, widowed, mother of one. And until that lunch, I truly believed I had done everything right. Daniel grew up in a 2-bedroom house in Westerville, Ohio, the kind of neighborhood where kids rode bikes till sunset and parents trusted the streetlights. After my husband Mark died of a heart attack, America didn't pause for me. Bills still came, work still demanded overtime, grief still had to fit into a schedule. So I worked. Hospitals don't sleep, and neither did I. Daniel learned independence early, making his own breakfast, doing laundry at 12, walking himself home from school. People praised me for raising a strong boy. What they didn't see was the quiet bond we built, late-night talks, frozen dinners eaten together, college dreams whispered across a kitchen table. I wasn't a perfect mother, but I was present. He called me on a Wednesday night. "Mom," he said, nervous, "I'm seeing someone serious." I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. Emily Brooks, marketing consultant, originally from Oregon, moved to Ohio for new opportunities. She sounded modern, confident, organized. When Daniel said, "She makes decisions fast," I laughed. Now I understand what he really meant. The first time I met Emily, she shook my hand, not hugged me. "Nice to finally meet you," she said.
When Daniel told me they were engaged, there was no excitement. No ring photos, no family dinner, no celebration. Just information. "We're not doing anything traditional," he said quickly, like he was bracing for an argument. "I understand," I replied. And I did. Or at least I thought I did. The cafes smelled like roasted coffee and burnt toast. Emily ordered first. Daniel waited for her to finish before he spoke. That's when I noticed something else. He kept looking at her before answering me. Permission. I asked the question gently. "So, when's the wedding?" Emily didn't miss a beat. "We got married yesterday." The words landed, heavy and final. I felt heat rise to my face. Yesterday? While I was folding laundry, while I was answering emails, while I was alive and unaware. "You didn't think to call?" I asked softly. Daniel stared at his hands. Emily answered instead. "We wanted to keep it simple." Simple. That word again. They didn't take a ceremony from me. They took my chance to bless them, my place in his future, my right to matter. In American culture, weddings aren't just events. They're declarations of who belongs. And I didn't. When the waiter dropped the bill, Emily smiled politely. "Thanks for understanding," she said. Understanding what? That I was unnecessary? That night, Daniel texted, "Hope you're okay, Mom." Hope. Not sorry, not forgive me, just hope. I couldn't sleep, so I did something I had never done before. I opened my laptop and searched public records, marriage license, property filings,
LLC registrations. Because in America, everything leaves a paper trail. And what I found made my hands shake. Daniel hadn't just married in secret. He had signed something that protected Emily and erased me.
I always believed secrets lived in people. I was wrong. In America, secrets live in documents. It was past midnight. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears. I sat at the same kitchen table where Daniel once practiced spelling words, now typing his full name into the Franklin County Public Records website. I told myself I was just curious. That was a lie. I was afraid. I clicked marriage licenses. There it was. Daniel Mark Carter. Emily Rose Brooks. Filed 2 weeks ago. Ceremony date. Yesterday. 2 weeks. That meant something else had happened before the wedding. People don't rush like that without a reason. That's when I saw it. A separate filing. Same names. Different category. My heart began to race. Daniel had always hated paperwork. He avoided contracts. He trusted people too easily. There was no way this was his idea. I opened the document summary, and that's when I realized this wasn't a prenup. It was a shield. I'm not a lawyer, but I understand English. The agreement stated, Emily entered the marriage with no financial obligations to extended family. Daniel waived any future claims involving parental assets. Any inheritance received by Daniel would be considered marital property under Emily's management. In the event of divorce, Emily retained decision authority over joint assets. Decision authority. Not equal. Authority. This wasn't about love. This was about control and timing. Emily didn't just marry my son. She positioned herself between him and everything else, including me. The next morning, I called Daniel. He answered on the third ring. Hey, Mom. His voice sounded tired. Did you sign a prenup? I asked. Silence. Longer than before. Emily thought it was practical. He finally said. Practical. Another word I was starting to hate. Did you read it? I asked. Yes, he said quickly. Too quickly. I asked one simple question. Did you know it affected my estate? He hesitated, then said, No. That was the first lie. I knew because my lawyer friend, someone I hadn't called yet, once told me, if a prenup mentions parental assets, it's never accidental. Daniel had known. He just hadn't understood. I began replaying everything. The rushed engagement, the quiet wedding, the distance. Emily wasn't loud. She was strategic. She didn't isolate Daniel by force. She isolated him by efficiency. Handled paperwork, scheduled appointments, spoke for him in conversations. By the time anyone noticed, it was already done. That afternoon, I checked property records, and there it was, a quitclaim deed filed 3 days after the wedding. My stomach dropped. Daniel had added Emily's name to the condo he bought before meeting her. Why would he do that? Unless he thought he had no choice. I remembered Daniel at 17, standing in the kitchen. Mom, I don't like arguing, he'd said. I just want things to be calm. Emily knew that, and she used it. 2 days later, I sat in a quiet law office. Oak desk, American flag in the corner. The lawyer read the prenup slowly, then looked at me. Your son didn't protect himself, she said, and he definitely didn't protect you. Can it be undone? I asked. She shook her head. Only if he chooses to fight it. Daniel would never fight. That was the problem. I drove home in silence. I wasn't angry anymore. I was awake. If Emily thought I was just going to fade quietly into the background, she had underestimated one thing. I raised Daniel, which meant I knew exactly how much pressure it took
to make him finally stand up. That night, I received a message, not from Daniel, from Emily. I think it's best if we set some boundaries. Boundaries. That was the moment I realized this marriage wasn't just over. It was war, politely disguised.
The message sat on my phone like a quiet threat. I think it's best if we set some boundaries. No emojis, no greeting, no explanation. Just a sentence, carefully chosen. In modern America, boundaries has become a polite way of saying, stay in your lane. Don't question us. You don't have access anymore. Emily didn't need to raise her voice. She had already done the real work on paper. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I finally understood something critical. Emily wanted a reaction. She wanted me emotional, defensive, apologetic. I gave her nothing. Silence is uncomfortable for people who rely on control. I called Daniel that night, straight to voicemail. The next morning, text only. Busy today. Talk later. Later never came. This wasn't accidental. Emily was restructuring his world. A week passed, then 2. Finally, Daniel called. We're just trying to build our own life, he said. There it was. That phrase. A phrase often taught, not discovered. I understand, I replied. I just want to see you. Another pause. Maybe once things settle. Settle. Everything was already settled, just without me. 2 days later, I drove to their condo. I didn't knock loudly. I didn't cause a scene. I rang the bell once. Emily answered. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Oh, she said, we weren't expecting you. I called, I replied. She nodded slowly. Daniel's resting. I could hear the TV inside. Daniel's favorite sports channel. He wasn't resting. He was hiding. Emily stepped half outside, blocking the doorway. This is what I meant by boundaries, she said calmly. I'm his mother, I replied. And now I'm his wife. The door closed gently, not slammed. That's how she did everything. I researched late into the night. Articles, studies, legal blogs. The pattern was clear. Fast commitment, legal consolidation, emotional distance from family, framing concern as toxicity. Emily wasn't unique. She was efficient. I made my first real decision. I updated my will, removed ambiguity, locked assets into a family trust. Daniel would still benefit, but only under conditions. Not punishment, protection. In America, money talks quietly, and Emily was listening. 2 days after the trust was filed, my phone buzzed. A message from Emily. Longer this time. I'm sensing hostility. I hope you're not trying to manipulate things financially. That wouldn't be healthy for Daniel. She knew. The system had notified her. She framed my protection as aggression. Classic reversal. I replied calmly, I'm simply planning responsibly, like you did. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No reply. When Daniel finally called, his voice was different. Flat, guarded. Mom, Emily's been really stressed. Of course she had. She feels like you don't respect our marriage. I closed my eyes. Does she feel that way? I asked. Or do you? Silence. That answered everything. Before hanging up, I said something I had never said before. If you ever need help, real help, you know where I am. Emily didn't like that, because it reminded her. She didn't own him completely. That night, an envelope arrived. No return address. Inside was a printed email. Private. Between Emily and someone else. Discussing me, discussing timing, discussing control. And the final line read, once everything is secured, she won't matter. I stared at the printed email for a long time. Not because I didn't understand it,
but because I finally understood her. It wasn't long, just 3 short paragraphs. No greeting, no signature, but the sender address was clear. From Emily Brooks to M. Henderson. The subject line read, "Final phase." That phrase alone made my chest tighten. The message wasn't emotional. It was operational. Once everything is secured, she won't matter. Daniel is compliant as long as the environment stays calm. The trust issue is a delay, not a threat. We just need to adjust timing. Adjust timing. As if I were a shipment. I searched the name. It didn't take long. Michael Henderson, CPA, specialized in asset structuring and marital financial planning, based in Cleveland, Ohio. Not a friend, a professional. That's when the fear settled into something colder. Emily wasn't improvising. She had help. Emily had entered the marriage with a plan. And Daniel was the variable. I called the number listed for Henderson's office. I didn't accuse. I didn't threaten. I asked a simple question. "Are you advising my daughter-in-law?" A pause. "I can't discuss clients," he said carefully. "I didn't ask you to," I replied. "I asked if you're advising her against me." Silence again. Then, "I think there's been a misunderstanding." That's lawyer speak for, "You're closer than I'm comfortable with." I didn't stop there. I hired a private investigator. Not for drama, for clarity. Within 10 days, I had a folder. And inside that folder was something far worse than hostility. Emily had opened 3 LLCs in the last 18 months, listed Daniel as a silent cosigner, used marital status to access credit leverage, moved money between accounts before the wedding. This wasn't love. This was positioning. What hurt the most wasn't the strategy. It was seeing Daniel's name everywhere, on documents he barely understood, on risks he never agreed to. Emily didn't dominate him. She outpaced him. I didn't tell Daniel. Not yet. Because confronting someone who is being controlled often pushes them deeper into the control. I needed him to see it himself. 2 weeks later, Emily did something unexpected. She invited me to dinner at their condo. "Daniel really wants to reconnect," she texted. Reconnect. That word was doing a lot of work. The table was set perfectly. Wine poured, music low. Emily was charming, too charming. Daniel barely spoke. When he did, he looked at her first. Again. Halfway through dinner, Emily said something she didn't mean to. "We've already discussed relocating. It's just a matter of when the assets finalize." I froze. "Relocating where?" I asked. Daniel blinked. "What?" Emily smiled. "Oh, we talked about it, remember?" Daniel didn't answer, because they hadn't. For the first time, I saw confusion in Daniel's eyes, not toward me, toward her. It was small, but it was there. When I stood to leave, I placed the folded email on the counter. Emily saw it. Her face didn't change, but her breathing did. "I think this belongs to you," I said quietly. That night, Daniel called me. His voice was shaking. "Mom," he said, "what didn't you tell me?" Daniel's voice on the phone didn't sound like my son. It sounded like a man who had just realized he didn't know his own life. "Mom," he said again, "what didn't you tell me?" I didn't answer right away, because this wasn't a moment to win. It was a moment to not lose him. "There are things," I said slowly, "you need to ask her first." Silence. Then a breath. "She says you're exaggerating." Of course she did. People think control breaks with shouting. It doesn't. It breaks when the controlled person starts asking specific questions. Daniel hadn't done that before. Until now. "Did you plan the prenup before you proposed?" he asked her later that night. "I know because he told me everything the next morning." Emily didn't answer immediately. She smiled and said, "I planned responsibly." That wasn't an answer. Daniel noticed. "Why are there LLCs with my name on them?" he asked. Emily's smile tightened. "They're harmless." Another non-answer. In America, adults are taught that if paperwork is involved, it's serious. Daniel was finally catching up. Emily didn't yell. She reframed. She told him his mother was planting doubt. I was afraid of losing relevance. Boundaries were being violated. Daniel listened, then asked the wrong question. "Why didn't you tell me about relocating?" That one landed. Because it wasn't emotional. It was factual. According to Daniel, she stood up from the couch. Not angry. Controlled. And said, "I didn't think you were ready to manage that information." Manage. Not decide.
Daniel didn't confront her right away. That alone told me how deep this had gone. The bank alert came at 2:17 p.m. Transfer pending $186,000 from their joint account, authorized under a spousal management clause. Daniel stared at the screen like it was written in another language. "I didn't approve this," he said. "You didn't have to," the banker explained calmly. "The account permissions were updated after your marriage." Emily had changed the rules without changing the relationship. Daniel didn't panic. He went quiet. That scared me more, because panic looks for rescue, silence looks for strategy. Within an hour, we were back at the law office. This time, the tone was different. The lawyer didn't lean back, she leaned forward. "This crosses into misrepresentation," she said, "and possibly financial abuse." Daniel flinched. Abuse. That word doesn't sound like quiet dinners or organized paperwork, but that's what it often looks like. The lawyer explained it simply. Emily had legal authority, but not unchecked authority. Large transfers without disclosure could be challenged. Daniel exhaled. "So I'm not powerless?" "No," she said. "You were uninformed. There's a difference." Daniel went home that evening. He recorded the conversation, legally. He didn't accuse. He asked, "Where did the money go?" Emily didn't answer directly. "I moved it to protect us." "Protect from what?" She couldn't say. She turned it on him. "Your mother is poisoning you." Daniel paused, then said something new. "Answer the question." She didn't like that. Emily crossed her arms. "If you don't trust me," she said, "maybe we shouldn't be married." In the past, that would have ended the conversation. This time, Daniel nodded. Maybe we shouldn't. Emily's control depended on one thing, Daniel's fear of conflict, and it was gone. The lawyer moved fast, filed an injunction to pause transfers, a notice of financial review, a request for full disclosure. Emily was served the next morning, at work, in front of colleagues. That wasn't revenge. That was procedure. She didn't call Daniel. She emailed, cold, formal, threatening litigation, claiming emotional distress. Daniel read it once, then closed his laptop. "She sounds like a stranger," he said. "She always was," I replied. That night, Daniel packed a bag. Not everything, just enough. He came back to my house, the same house he grew up in. "I don't know how I missed this," he said. I didn't answer, because shame grows when it's fed. The lawyer laid it out. Annulment was possible. Divorce was likely. Either way, it would get ugly. Emily didn't lose quietly. She escalated. 2 days later, Daniel was served. Protective order filed. Claim, emotional manipulation and harassment. Filed by Emily, against me. That's when I realized she wasn't done. She was just changing weapons. The protective order didn't accuse me of violence. That would have been too obvious. It accused me of something far more effective: influence. According to Emily's filing, I was, quote, emotionally manipulating Daniel, interfering with a lawful marriage, creating a hostile environment. No shouting, no threats, just words designed to sound reasonable. In American courts, reasonable lies are the most dangerous ones. The judge issued a temporary order, not because he believed her, but because the system prefers caution. For 14 days, I couldn't contact Emily. I couldn't discuss finances with Daniel. I couldn't visit their condo. Daniel sat beside me, jaw tight. "This is insane," he whispered. "No," I said quietly. "This is strategy." Emily didn't want to win emotionally. She wanted to control the story, frame herself as the victim, force Daniel into choosing sides. Because once someone chooses publicly, retreat becomes humiliation. The courtroom was small. No jury, just a judge, 2 liars, and silence. Emily cried. Not loudly, precisely. She spoke about fear, about losing her husband to outside influence. Her lawyer used words like enmeshment, boundary erosion, undue pressure. I watched the judge's face. Neutral, careful.
My lawyer didn't attack. She presented timelines, emails, bank records, LLC filings. Facts don't cry. They sit there. Then my lawyer asked a single question. Why did the financial transfers begin before the marriage? Emily froze, just for a second, but the judge saw it. The court ordered a deeper review, and that's when Emily's past stopped cooperating. Emily had 2 prior short marriages, both ended after financial disputes. One ex-husband had filed a similar complaint. Another had signed a near-identical prenup. Pattern, not coincidence. The judge allowed Daniel to speak. Not long, just enough. I trusted her, he said. I didn't understand the documents, and when I asked questions, I was threatened. Emily shook her head. Too fast. The judge didn't rule that day, but he did say something that changed everything. This court does not confuse concern with control. Emily's lawyer stiffened. So did she. The temporary order against me was lifted, immediately. Emily didn't look at me. She packed her bag and left the courtroom without touching Daniel. Outside, Daniel sat on the courthouse steps. I feel like I woke up mid-story, he said. You did, I replied, and you still get to choose the ending. That evening, Daniel's lawyer received a call. Emily wanted to settle. Fast, quiet. And she was willing to give up more than expected, which meant one thing. She was hiding something worse.
Emily's lawyer didn't call with small talk. He called with numbers. She's willing to walk away, he said. No spousal support, no claim to future earnings, no contest on the trust. Daniel stared at the phone after the call ended. That's not normal, he said. He was right. People who believe they're right don't retreat that fast. My lawyer leaned back in her chair. When someone suddenly becomes generous, she said, it's because discovery scares them. Discovery, the legal process where lies lose privacy. Emily wanted one thing in return, a confidentiality clause. No testimony, no public filings beyond the minimum, no discussion of her finances. Daniel's lawyer underlined it. This is what she's protecting. The court granted limited discovery anyway. Just enough, and that was enough to end it. Emily wasn't just restructuring assets. She was under review by the IRS for inconsistent filings, linked to a dissolved LLC under investigation, named in a civil complaint involving misrepresented investments. Nothing proven yet, but enough to ruin her leverage, enough to explain the rush. Daniel sat alone in the conference room after reading it all. She didn't love me, he said quietly. I didn't answer, because the harder truth was worse. She may have believed she did, but love that requires silence isn't love. It's use. Emily didn't come in person. She joined by video. No tears this time. No charm. Just exhaustion. This got out of hand, she said. Daniel looked at her. No, he replied. This was always the plan. She didn't deny it. The settlement was signed. Marriage dissolved. Assets reversed. Records sealed where allowed. Emily disappeared from Daniel's life as efficiently as she had entered it. Weeks later, Daniel moved into a small apartment. Not fancy, not strategic, just his. He cooked badly, left dishes in the sink, laughed more than he had in years. One evening, he sat across from me. "I'm sorry," he said, "for cutting you out." I shook my head. "You came back," I replied. "That's what matters." Daniel learned something most people don't until much later. That love doesn't rush you, it doesn't isolate you, and it never asks you to disappear. Sometimes the betrayal isn't the secret wedding, it's what comes after. And sometimes the quiet question, "When's the wedding?" is the moment everything finally begins. Daniel started rebuilding his life. Not fast, not flashy, just deliberately. He learned to trust again, cautiously. But the biggest lesson wasn't about love, it was about agency. He cooked his own meals, paid bills on time, mostly, started therapy sessions. He even reconnected with friends he hadn't seen in years. Life doesn't stop when someone betrays you, I reminded him. He nodded. I just forgot how to live it. We began weekly dinners. Not formal, not orchestrated, just us. During one evening, Daniel laughed at a burnt lasagna. "I think Mom makes the worst lasagna ever," he joked. "I think it tastes perfect," I replied. It wasn't about food. It was about connection restored. We talked about everything: the secret wedding, Emily's manipulations, his growth through the ordeal. He admitted, "I didn't realize how much I relied on you, not for money, not for decisions, just life." I held his hand. "You always had it in you. You just needed space to see it." Daniel started mentoring young professionals. He shared cautionary stories about trust, boundaries, and self-agency. "Don't sign blindly," he told one. "Check every document," he said to another. "Love shouldn't erase you," he emphasized always. He understood now that love without clarity and trust is a risk disguised as romance. I also reflected on myself. I realized I had been too cautious before, too polite, too silent. Now I knew watchfulness doesn't make you controlling, it makes you wise. Emily was gone. No court battles remained, no emails, no manipulations. Daniel finally smiled freely again, not cautiously, not guardedly, just freely. We visited his father's grave together. "We survived," he said softly. "Yes," I replied. "And now you live fully." The secret wedding had been a shock, a betrayal, but it became a lesson in resilience, love, and clarity. Sometimes a question like, "When's the wedding?" doesn't just reveal a secret, it starts a story about power, trust, and finding yourself again.